Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be reviewing some of my old hands, um, starting with 25 and L, and if you like the series, we'll work our way up through the stakes. So I've only got a small sample of 25 and L, which is up on screen here. It's only about 13,000 hands. Over the sample, we won at 16 big blinds per 100 on EV. Obviously, that's largely going to be driven by a fair bit of variance um, over such a small sample. But anyway, like I think fairly clear that there's going to be a solid win rate there. In terms of our like style of play, this is very much earlier in my career where I was much more ABC in terms of playing a blue line strategy and although like a red line that's more or less break even is still pretty good. So what we'll be doing is putting on a filter and diving in through some of the more substantial pots, and we'll review my play. I'll pause the recording and start when we've got some hands in front of us. Okay, we're back. You can see the filters I've got up here. So obviously VPIP, that we've seen river, and that the final pot size in big blinds is bigger than 50 is what I've gone with. And so we're starting sort of in late 2022. So I imagine some of my plays is going to be a bit questionable, but let's just rapid fire through and get through about half an hour of worth of review. So we opened three big blinds with Queen 10. Already, like this is, I mean, three big blinds on the button is totally fine, but I'm just using 2.2 to 2.5 these days. But anyway, that's fine. Face a three bet from the big blind. Defend seems fine. King 9-6, and we face check. These days I'll probably be mixing between check and sort of a B33 sizing once we face check from the big blind. This hand can do either. I don't think it's a mandatory bet. We go for 10 big blinds, which seems okay, and get a call. And we see the seven of clubs on turn. Face check. This is a pretty interesting spot. Like we have the world in terms of equity. So I think we can go a couple of ways. We can probably B75 and call off if we face jam. I don't really want to bet, like quarter pot or anything and then face jam. And like we're then putting our hand in a really, really bad spot where we might not be getting the right odds to call off. So I think we can B75 or we can check back. Both are going to be okay. We do go for check and we see the river blank and we face check on river. And now we have a decision as to whether we want to reopen. I mean, our blockers are pretty bad overall, but also villain's sort of gone check, call, check, check, so is probably playing a pretty capped range. So yeah, I think I imagine at this stage we can probably blow villains off most hands if we just go with an all-in sizing here. But like I also think that our blockers are pretty bad. That if we want to just give up, that's probably also going to be okay. It's also not super credible um, to be jamming river when we check back turn. Like a lot of our sets are all going to want to build pot growth on the turn, just given that it's quite a dynamic board. A spade comes, an eight comes, it can kill a lot of action. So yeah, probably actually just leaning towards checking back river here. We we go with a half pot size bet, which I think seems pretty bad to me. It's just not really going to make his more marginal hands indifferent. So and his range is catered towards more marginal hands. So I think this is just like almost probably the worst possible sizing would be my view. We do get called, and yeah, he's got one of those marginal hands, which maybe at these stakes folds to jam, but certainly versus this size is not gonna end well for us. I should say that none of these hands I've like reviewed before, and I haven't looked into a solver on any of these, so these will just be my live thoughts as you see them. Face a three big blind open, three bet to 10 call seems okay. We can check or we can bet here. Both are going to be totally fine. If we are betting, probably half pot seems fine. 10 big blinds, okay. We face a click raise. Versus click raise, I don't think we can fold. Like we just have too much either showdown now or we have 6 outs to improve, so pretty happy to continue. Like not loving life, but I think we have to continue. We face check. I think here it's just a pure check back. Again, hand has showdown. No reason to turn this into a bluff yet. And river 3, we face jam. I think this is just a clear fold. Okay. Defend the big blind versus a hijack open. And we flop top pair top kicker. And face b50. I think versus b50 here, I'm generally going to play quite aggressively on these low paired boards. Not necessarily like b50, the person's unlikely to be betting range, but certainly if we're like facing third pot, I'm going to raise a lot of hands. And then also just throw some good Jack X and obviously 3X in there. Versus b50 size as well when we have top pair, top kicker, I think is good enough to raise for sure. And so going to take that line quite often. We do just go for a call. This is probably like a difference in my like approach. I imagine back then I probably just like always call this and never find a raise. Whereas sort of now I'm going to approach these spots much more aggressively. So we do just call, check, and we face 11.9 big blinds into 12, so almost pot. I think just pretty standard call here. Not planning on folding. He can still be value betting worse. So pretty standard call. And we see the 8 on the river. We check. And we face 47 big blinds into 36. So at this point, our hand is now just going to be a pure bluff catcher. I don't think villain is going to take this sizing with ace jack. It's possible, but unlikely. I think this is probably where we just need to. Obviously, we don't have the benefit of having a HUD up, right? If we've got up against an aggressive opponent here, I'm happy to just like snap this off. There are plenty of draws that missed, and there are plenty of maniacs in the pool that can be firing off too wide. If we're against a tighter reg, I think folding seems like the play. So yeah, just probably making this decision based off specific player types, which we don't have in the moment. Let's see what we did. We go for a call, and we run into kings. Sure. Yeah, a bit unclear to say, like, in hindsight, whether this should have just been a mandatory fold if we're against, a reasonably tight reg, or whether this is a splashier player but just happened to have kings this time. We open up ace queen. Okay, it's 2.4 big blinds. 3-bet to 11. We can 4-bet here, but calling is going to be the predominant play. Flop queen 10-9, and we face third pot. So I don't think third pot is a great sizing from villain, would be my initial reaction from the big blind. Like, I mean, it's probably an okay sizing, but villains here are probably just like betting far too often here when they're supposed to have a pretty polarized range from the big blind. That said, our hand is a clear continue, and then it's just like whether we ever want to, flick raise at all. I think raise small is also okay. There are plenty of hands that have to continue versus raise, like ace jack, ace 10, king queen, queen jack, all those type of hands that we're ahead of that have a lot of equity, ace king as well. Yeah, so I think we can raise, but call is also going to be totally fine. We go for call, 9 on the turn, and we face check. We can again do a couple of things here. Checking I think is going to be fine. We can probably then, if we see a clean river, the hand will be like worth all in by the river if we face two checks. So I think we can still get stacks in if we want to. But then also recognizing that there are so many hands that have either pair plus draw or just a naked draw. I think building the pot here is still probably worthwhile. So yeah, I'm okay with sort of like I mean anything between B50 to B75 is probably going to be okay. And I think check is still okay as well. We do go for B50. I think that's fine, and we get a call, and we see the six of clubs roll off. This is an interesting card, and we face check. I imagine that this spot is still good enough to jam. I think it's reasonably close, but we'd probably expect villains to just not arrive here with enough flushes. After they decide to just check call turn. Like I think either a lot of villains are going to keep barreling with their flush draws on the turn, or they might even put it in a check shove line on the turn. And then when we also have the ace of clubs blocker, there really just aren't that many combos of clubs that can be here. So I think that's a fairly marginal consideration. And then we're really not losing to anything else. Again, similarly, like aces, kings can quite easily play sort of like check jam on the turn. Yeah, so I think we're just not behind that often here. It's getting towards thin, but I think from these positions, big blind versus button, I think jam is still good. We do find jam, and we get a fold. Open the button, face a 3-bet. Yeah, this is like pretty marginal. Like we can 4-bet, we can call. Go for a call. Flop the nut flush draw and face third pot. Again, we're seeing this like third pot sizing from the big blind here, like which I just don't think is really the appropriate sizing structure that you want to be taking, but this is probably what you're getting at 25 NL here. So against third pot, we obviously have an easy continue. We can also consider raise. Like I think raise is totally fine against a range which is like probably betting way too often. And like ultimately, if we get shoved on, we can just get the money in. But we do just go for the call. Again, we're sort of seeing a common trend here of probably taking the more passive line when we also have aggressive lines that are available to us. 7 on the turn, brings in 2 flush draws, and we face check. So I think this spot, it's another awkward spot where if we bad and get jammed on, we're in all sorts of trouble. And I think our ace high is, at least in theory, good enough of the time. So I think we have, some showdown. Like we can potentially check back here and check back river and win at some frequency, or we can decide to bluff river. Yeah, I think I'm probably just checking back this turn with this combo. We've got a bit too much going on to really want to like pile money into the pot and risk facing check jam. And at least in theory, there are hands in his range that are looking to line up to check jam here after the double flush draw comes in. We do check back, and we get there this time. Face a small bet. I think only players jam. All in, and we get a fold. Okay, so we have a open from the cutoff, call from the button. Yeah, we'd want to squeeze here. Yeah, probably looking to go like something like 15 big blinds. Go to 13. Like I think, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think we want to go a little bit bigger though, particularly facing the 3 big blind open size. Face jam and just an easy call. Beat ace king with a queen on the river. Alrighty. Open up the king queen. Face a flat from the button. And flop top pair. So these spots, I'm typically going to do a lot of checking to the button. Most of these sort of boards where we're out of position in a single raise pot, sort of versus the button, we are going to want to do a lot of checking here. I'm not sure if that was the strategy I was employing back then. We'll find out. We do find check, and it goes check back. And we see the two of clubs on the turn. I think this is a pretty cool spot to polarize here. Um, we can have like plenty of ace X that like has now got an extra gut shot that can sort of polarize as well. And equally, villain here can, villain sitting here with pocket eights or something, and just like call us down twice because he's putting us on ace X, right? So when we have top pair, top kicker here, we, have a very strong hand, worth a lot of money. We need to rush pot growth. So yeah, I like, B200 here. Seems pretty good. Something like 12 big blinds seems pretty good to me. We do find the overbet, like 1.5x pot. Yeah, I like going a little bit bigger, but that seems totally fine. And get a call. And then the 7 on the river. Again, I think we almost always have the best hand here. I think the hand is still worth overbet. So yeah, I would go, maybe B125 here. Maybe something like 32 big blinds seems good to me. We go for 48 over 26, so almost 2x pot. It's on the larger side. It could still be good. Yeah, it's on the larger side. I think it's just going to depend how much of a station this guy is. I don't mind this sizing, to be honest. I think it's fine. And we face jam. This is going to be one of those spots at 25 and out where you just need to ask yourself, how enticing is this spot for him to bluff after he's faced almost 2x pot on the river and I only have 37 big blinds behind? Yeah, the answer is like this spot is not enticing at all to bluff. So unless we have a read that this guy is an absolute maniac, I think this is just a pretty trivial fold. It's one of those spots where like it's really weird in that we reach the river and we're like, well, we're always winning here, or at least that's what we thought, and now we're always losing, right? Like this just looks like sort of rivered pocket sevens, right? That's kind of, there's not much that he can have here, but it's also just like really unintuitive for him to find a bluff. So yeah, I think just a mandatory fold. We do flick in the chips, so let's find out what we had. Yeah, okay, so he's turned the straight. Yeah, I think pretty bad call on the river there. Definitely something that I struggled with for like quite a long time. Still struggle with. I hate folding, but certainly when you face a river raise after you've bet 2x pot on the turn, like you were just throwing another 37 big blinds into the muck by calling off first jam. Seems pretty bad. Pocket queens have a limp, a ISO to 6.5, a cold call to 6.5, and we're in the big blind with queens. Yeah, definitely just looking to re-ISO this. Yeah, pretty, maybe like to 26 big blinds, something like that. Would be sort of what I'm looking to do here. With flat, which I don't like at all, unless we have some sort of read about like this player that he's always just going to like pile in more money. I really don't want to go to a flop here 4 ways with queens. Seems really bad. But we do. Okay, and we see king 8-4. And this guy donks for half pot, and we get 2 folds. I mean, this is now actually just like, I'm assuming this guy's going to be some sort of, really huge whale. And this is now so just going to be completely stat dependent. So I'm not really able to provide much insight over, without a HUD up. I mean, the queens are actually like pretty nice holdings in that we block, 2 combos of king queen suited. So it's actually a pretty nice call down hand. So I'm happy to like decide to call down if we know this guy's an absolute maniac, or else just like fold now. I'm probably against this sort of player. I'm literally making my decision on the flop here of if we think this guy is wide enough and crazy enough that we have the best hand now, there's just like no river there's no run out that I'm going to fold on unless it comes like maybe an ace. And Otherwise, then I'm just going to fold flop. So we do go for call. So I'm hoping now we just like are calling down and hopefully we run into something weird. Because otherwise I think this is pretty bad if we find a fold at some point. Face half pot. Pretty fishy sizing, like just, yep, gonna call. And we face a non-all-in size. Okay, I imagine just calling. Yeah, okay, and he turns up with the 6-7 off. So this is just like the, you know, if we know our customer, we can just call down super wide. But again, like if this was, a tighter fish, then obviously calling down 3 straights with queens here is going to be pretty bad. So this is just about knowing the opponent. And, perhaps this is why we just called on the flop, because we want to get this guy involved. But even still, I don't think we want to take queens 4 ways here. So unless we expect this guy to actually like raise over the top of us all the time, I think the call on the flop is pretty bad. Anyway, moving on. Ace Queen, facing open to 3.4 big blinds. A call from a short stack in the small blind. Definitely looking to bump this up. Again, something like 15, 16 big blinds seems good to me. 12.8 seems way too small. Just way too small. We're going to get called in 2 spots all the time here. And ultimately, we can make this 16 big blinds, and like we're very happy to get it in against player 3. Okay, so we do get called in 2 spots, get a pretty dream flop. This is now just a question of there's not much that we're really needing to protect against here. So if it does, like if we check and it checks through, it's really not the end of the world. I probably just prefer check because when we check and then player 5 checks, we've got a pretty volatile player in the small blind with only 28 big blinds behind. Like they're just going to put the money in a lot of the time, and they're going to put it in with a load of junk, which they might fold if we bet here. So I'm pretty happy to just check here and expect player 3 to put the money in a lot of the time. Oh, sorry, I thought we were in the small blind. Okay, we've misread that. This guy checked first, sure. Once he checks, I think check is still okay, but I don't think player 5 is going to, like, he's not really going to reopen the action with too many random hands, right? Because you've got this player with 28 big blinds behind. So maybe I think I just prefer a small bet on the flop. But it's whatever. We're not really protecting against much, as I said, except probably an offsuit king. An offsuit king's pretty bad. Okay, face a 4 big blind bet from the small blind. Yeah, I think just like call here. Don't see much point in raise. Calls 3-way and check. Yeah, I think our hand is worth the 25 big blinds that the small blind has. It's pretty dicey with the king coming off now, but if player 5 had a strong hand, we'd probably face raise on the turn. So yeah, I think we can bet 25 big blinds and essentially say we're willing to get this in against the small blind, and there's really not much more value to be had against player 5, I would say. Yeah, I think the hand is worth a bet rather than a check here. Like once we check this, we're just always winning, right? So I'd rather try and get some money out of player 3. It's reasonably close though with second pair. What did we say? We had a post or a limp? No, a limp. And we ISO to 6 big blinds. Yeah, seems pretty good. Like I'll typically ISO quite large versus fish. Yeah, depending on the type of fish, I'll even make this 7.5 now. Like quite large on ignition works pretty well, and we do get a call. A pretty bad flop. This is now just going to be like fish dependent. Is this a guy that just like punts off every time when we check to him? Is he more passive? Yeah, like ultimately we don't really want to build a huge amount of pot growth here now with third pair. So I like starting with a check. Goes check, check. So queen on the turn. Our hand's probably good a lot of the time now. After the fish checks back on the flop, like they're just not going to protect their range with enough with enough strong hands. So we can probably now, bet like three big blinds, which achieves a couple of purposes. It's going to get called by King Jack, Jack Nine, a bunch of ace highs, which we all beat. It's also going to deny some equity from some overcard holdings, so when he has 8-9, he's probably going to fold it, and we, um, fold out, get some useful fold equity there. Yeah, so I think multi-purposes, three big blinds seems okay to me. Check is probably also fine. We do go for check, and we face all in. So we just declared that we thought we were almost always winning, and then we face all in. I mean, this is now just like fish dependent on like how spewy is this guy. Um, the line doesn't really make sense to me in that I don't think he is going to check enough queen X on the flop, and now he's saying he's got a queen. So I'm pretty sus of this. I imagine, pretty volatile fish. I'm okay if we call this off. We do go for call. And he's just got ace-8. So it's like we've given him all the rope, and after he checks back, so the assumption here is like he's not finding enough checks with queen X, and then when he jams turn, I don't know, the fish is essentially saying he's got queen X. So like the story is pretty inconsistent there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this call. Seems good. See a limp, ISO to 4 big blinds, seems good. Get a cold call from the button, and the limper folds. Coming to 3-3 deuce. Yeah, we can play this a couple of ways. Generally on these low paired boards, like no one really has any 3x here, so we're going to base our betting around our overpairs. So we can sort of go like B75 as our sort of sizing. It's a bit weird in this, like I guess I'm not sure if you should treat the ranges here like a single raise pot and do a lot more checking, given this was a limp and then an ISO and then a cold call. Bit weird. I don't exactly know what ranges look like. If we do think he is going to overstab after we check flop, then then check raise is going to play quite nicely as well. So I think we're just going to base this on what we think the villain's doing. I don't like the three big blind sizing. When we're betting here, we want to be betting around our overpair advantage. So let's pile in a lot more money than this. This seems pretty bad. It does achieve facing a raise though. We can probably still 3-bet this hand, and we can also just call. It's again like when we 3-bet this hand, we like build the pot now against pocket eights before an overcard comes and kills the action, which is going to be good. But also, if this guy's just quite volatile and raising here way too often, we probably just want to keep his bluffs in. I'm okay with either call or 3-bet. See an ace on the turn, and we face half pot. Not a great, not a great spot to be in. I, there shouldn't be too much ace X in this region. Like a lot of ace X versus like three big blinds on the flop is probably just good enough to call. So when he's sort of volatilely raising, it's probably around his other Broadway cards and not so much ace X. But also, yeah, so I guess it's going to be more of that stuff, but there is going to be some weird ace X here. We're getting an okay price. I think we can call once. It's going to be pretty dicey if we face jam on river. 7 on turn, clear check, and he does give up, question mark. Oh, we don't get to see what he had. Yeah, I imagine he just like raised some, random Broadway holding or something, and then gave up on river. Yeah, interesting spot. Pocket sevens. Open to 3, face a 3-bet. So I mean, I'm probably just like our open sizing is too big. Like I'm normally making this 2.2 now, facing sort of 3-bet to 7.5. At which point, like calling here with sevens is pretty much zero EV. When we've gone to 3 and we face a 3-bet to 9.4, I think this is probably minus EV to call. So I'd probably just let this one go. But we do call and start with check, and we face 8.6 big blinds into 20, so a bit bigger than third pot. I think with with the hearts and the backdoor straight draws, I think we can continue at least for one straight. Would be my like typical approach here. Sevens without a heart is pretty borderline. Also, if we like faced a slightly bigger size, it becomes pretty borderline. It's reasonably indifferent, but I think call is going to be higher EV than fold. Okay, that makes our life easier, binking the 7 on the turn. This should pretty much play itself from here. So face 26, obviously the only consideration is jam or jam or call, but I think this is just a very clear call. We're going to get all the money from his king X, and he may just triple off, his ace queens because he thinks he's got, the king X advantage here. So I think just a very clear call for me. We do go for jam. I don't like this. Like, yes, we're going to stack his king X, but as I said, we were going to stack that anyway. The only real advantage this has is like when a heart rolls off or an 8 or a 4 rolls off and it kills the action. But yeah, I think call is totally fine. We do just get the money from ace king. So, and I mean, the river rolled off a 4. So it's like, but I would still expect ace king. I don't know, maybe at this stake, people don't jam ace king when the 4-liner comes on the turn on the river there. I think it's still strong enough to jam. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably still just preferring call on turn, but looks like it worked out pretty favorably for us this time. Open the 9-10, face a really small 3-bet. Yep, just very easy call. And we face almost half pot. Yeah, probably just continuing with pure call here. I think seems reasonable. We don't really want to raise and then face jam. Oh, we're also 200 big blinds deep. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be an expert at 200 big blinds deep here, but I imagine we just want to play calls, keep the pot a bit smaller, because ultimately, whilst our king gives us a straight, it doesn't give us the nut straight. So you have to be a bit more concerned about, eventual runouts and when you're not drawing to the nuts as much. Obviously the 8 is still the nuts, but the king isn't. Yeah, you're going to be in a bit more trouble when you're 200 big blinds deep. We do just go for call. We face 27 big blinds into 37.6. So a couple of thoughts here. Like, firstly, he should be checking a lot of range on the turn here. As to whether he's doing that or not, it's not clear. But I think our hand is pretty marginal here, so I imagine we should just let this one go. Again, the king is not a great out. We've now got, the king of spades and the 8 of spades are pretty dead outs for us as well. There's just not enough going on for us. We can be dead on the turn here as well. There's a huge amount of reverse implied odds, so I think just let this one go. We do go for call, which I don't think is great. Seems pretty bad. And we don't get rewarded. We see the ace of diamonds on the river. And we face check. And now the question is, do we go for this? And I think the answer has to be yes. Kind of. It's kind of hard for us to get here with worse, right? Like, yeah, it's pretty hard for us to get here with worse. We block one combo of king 10. We obviously don't block the flushes. Yeah, I think we do need to reopen this here. I don't think we want to play jam or anything because we don't even have a spade blocker. Like, I imagine if we have some sort of hand that wants to bluff here, like maybe when we have Jack 10, we're never going to have Jack 10 off. Maybe if we have like pocket 10s with a spade here, maybe that's going in the all-in sizing. It's a bit unclear. Yeah, I don't think this hand wants to be jamming, but probably something between B75 and pot. The sort of, I guess, like, is a lot of his range going to be ace king here, like those one pair hands, and we get them to fold for 75% pot. I guess that's probably what I'm basing it around. can we get ace king, ace 10 to fold for b75? And the answer is probably. And I don't expect him to have too many traps here. Yeah, I think we can. I think we can go b75. I don't think. Well, I'm not sure how like ace queen or ace jack responds versus b75. It's probably more ace queen that we're running into. It probably just doesn't fold, but that is what it is. Okay, we go for like a b125 sizing. I think this is okay. Like maybe this gets ace queen to fold. Like I'm glad we haven't used all in, I think. Yeah, I'm okay with this sizing. And we do get it through. Okay. Yeah, I think a mistake on the turn to call. Like I think we just don't really have much business getting to the river here. But once we do get to the river here, I'm certainly glad we decided to bluff our hand. All right, we'll do a couple more. Ace king, we have a post who then raises to 3. Definitely going to 3-bet this. Okay to 12 is fine. Can go a bit bigger, but sure, 12 is fine. Okay, flop the nuts. Always good. Yeah, again, based on how volatile the opponent is, we can kind of choose our line here as to whether we want to play checks here at all. The kind of the whilst we have the nuts, having the king of diamonds as well is pretty bad in that it's really hard for him to ever have, a strong hand. So when we have the king of diamonds, like maybe this is going to be a better checking candidate than when say we 3-bet with ace 4 of diamonds. Because when we have ace 4 of diamonds, he can have king 10 of diamonds, he can have king 9 of diamonds, or he can have the king blocker, right? Like he can have king queen off with the king of diamonds. So when we block both the two best diamonds, I think we can play more checks. But then by the same token, if we want to just like simplify our strategy and just play like b25 here with range, probably also going to perform fine. Like villains aren't going to play well enough versus small bets. They're not going to raise enough. They're not going to defend enough. So we do go the small bet size. We do face raise. Yeah, I think now just a mandatory call. It seems suicidal to do anything other than call here when we also have the king of diamonds. And let's just like let him bluff it off. Yep, check, face bet. I think again, just clear call. I mean, I don't like this because his range is just gonna be garbage most of the time. Versus the small bet size. Like when he's got a flush, we're getting the money in all the time anyway. And when he's got a set, we're probably getting the money in all the time anyway. I don't think we need to raise this. Anyway, we do raise and we get a call. Okay, and he's just got pocket eights with a diamond. Yeah, okay. 25 and L things, I guess. Mind you, I mean, you see this, like, again, we're working without a HUD here. We don't know who's a fish. I mean, okay, we should have known that he's a fish and that he posted pre-flop. So I guess we do have that information. But still, I think we should just, like, let him punt off. If he's betting pocket eights here, he's probably betting, like, 100% of range. And then it's just a disaster to raise over the top. So, yeah, I think call is much better on turn here. All right, let's do one more. One more interesting one. Open the ace jack, get a cold call from the small blind and the big blind call. Okay. Check and then face a donk from the big blind to big blinds. I think just like lots of small raises here, just to punish a pretty wide range and just like clean out. Like our hand is very strong here, but if we let two people in to the pot here, yeah, there are turn cards that are going to either kill our action or just like demote the value of our hand. So I think a lot of small raise here, like just make this like 5 big blinds or something, clean out the small blinds. The big blind's not going to fold anything, and then like let's just stack the big blinds like a7 off here that he's decided to donk. That's my plan. We do call and get a call from the small blind. Yeah, again, not quite on board with that, but it's okay. Certainly better than folding. The diamond draw completes, and we face check, check. Yep, it's with the jack of diamonds. This is worth a small bet here. I don't think we can play for stacks anymore. But yeah, a small bet seems okay. Jack is probably also okay. We go 9 into 13. I think it's a bit larger than I want to go here. Like, small blind can have flushes, big blind can have flushes. We're probably just like burning a bit too much money here. But again, I mean, they're both recreational players. They can still have ace X. They can have single diamond hands. So, like, I don't think this size is terrible. We do get a call from the small blinds, and we have a flush. 32 big blinds, 50 behind. And we face a donk of 22 into 32. I mean, this is just going to be pretty rough. Pretty rough. Our hand is pretty indifferent here. It's going to be contingent on like how much of a fish this guy is. Um, Again, previous me had the hindsight of like knowing exactly how much of a fish he is. Like he's called out of the small blinds. He's called twice. So he's going to be heavily filtered towards flush draws. So my instinct is to fold this hand. But again, if we've seen this guy be an absolute nutter, well then hopefully we'll know. So I guess my default assumption, is let's just fold. Unless we've seen other things from this player. We do go for a call. Yeah, and we see pocket fives with a diamond. So who knows what this guy is doing. So I imagine like versus this player, and this is probably why I've called, is because we've seen these sort of showdowns, right? And when you're getting the price that you're getting, like we don't actually need to win all that often. Less than 1 in 3 of the time. So it's probably okay. And yeah, certainly against someone who's like betting pocket fives here, right? Like it's going to be printing to call. Who knows what he's doing. Okay. Well, with that one out of the way, hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. Bit of a rapid fire review of some of my old play. As I said, we can work up our way up through the stakes of 50 an L, 100 an L, 200 an L, and see how we go. If you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I've got some cool videos coming up. So yeah, stay tuned. Alrighty, thank you.